I'm Jasmine from Fangirlish, so it's nice to meet you both, Ryan and Kelcie. And first of all, Ryan, I'm gonna take a little fangirl moment because I work for a company called Fangirlish, and I'm just gonna say that it was lovely to see you back on General Hospital when you were there for Bobby's memorial. Loved it so much, especially the BJ, especially the storyline with BJ. That was beautiful. So I just had to
Thank
tell
you.
you that. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and so with this film, because I've read the book, which I'm sure you guys can probably see, it's right behind me. It is very, very, very emotional. So I wanted to know, like, what did you guys do to decompress at the end of each shooting day? Because it seems like you have to stay in this state of like grieving constantly. Either one of you can go first.
Brian,
Uh,
do you want to go
yeah,
first?
sure. I'll take it. For me, it wasn't too different than what I oftentimes do to decompress at the end of the day. I A lot of times I just put on something like on Netflix or Amazon or something like that, and I just kind of that helps me turn my brain off. Unfortunately, I don't get a lot accomplished. I don't get a lot of shows watched that way, but I that's kind of my go-to. It just helps me turn my brain off, get out of my head, and my body start to relax. And then other times I'll read other things online as well. That's pretty much my typical go-to.
What about you, Kelsey?
Nothing terribly exciting. Sorry, nothing headline worthy
No,
there.
that's good. That's good. I think everybody has their own ways of decompressing it. When I think that those are good ways to do it, like listening to music or watching something. Like you know how people say you have a comfort show, just watching something that's gonna make you feel good and like you
Right,
said, feel
right,
relaxed.
yeah.
Personally, I talk to my mom every day. So every day after we shot, when we were done with the day, I would just call her and just tell her about the day. And that's like how I get calmed down.
Okay, I love that. There's nothing wrong with that. Talking is
Yeah.
always good. That's always
So
a
that
good
was
thing.
nice. And also like these days were so like they were very intense. But having Ryan and like coming back at the end of the day and like kind of we would chat together and just say this is how we felt about the day and how we felt about the scenes. That helped a lot too, because it just felt like we were really there together and going through all this together. So it was awesome to have like a partner there constantly to feel comfortable talking with and decompressing with. And yeah, it was nice to have him at the end of the day to say like here's how I felt it went, how did you feel like it went, and that was really nice.
Okay. And then my next question is, so like Elizabeth is like in the air he breathes, Elizabeth is the only one who is basically willing to give Tristan a chance, like despite what everybody is saying, like everybody is telling her you need to stay away from him, he's a bad guy. Do you think it's because she herself knows what it's like to be judged by people? Because she talks a lot too about the way that people expect her to be after, the loss of her husband. Like everybody expects her to be walking around like grieving all the time, and they don't think that she should be moving forward with her life. So do you think that is kind of why she was like, more willing to talk to Tristan because she was like, I know what it's like to be judged by people, so I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I think she has Brittany wrote Elizabeth with this really incredible ability to see past a lot of these things, a lot of the surface qualities about people that, you kind of don't want to dig deeper. And that's one of my favorite things about Elizabeth is that she's able to see past, this is who he kind of expresses himself as and really sees like who he is at the end of the day and how he treats other people, how he treats her, how he treats her daughter. And yeah, I think she knows what it's like, and everybody has that knows what it's like to be judged and to not nobody likes being judged. And I think she saw past a lot of his what people other people would consider faults, and I think she sees that he is such a genuine person. He just has a harder time expressing, and he's they're going through a lot, and people express pain in a lot of different ways, and I think the way she expresses it is a lot different than he expresses it, and she's able to you know help him with this journey of how he expresses it, even though it's very different than how she does.
Yeah. And Ryan, then that brings me to my next question for you. Tristan has he has a lot of anger and a lot of pain because of the loss of his wife and his child. But my question to you is, why do you think that he is like he closes himself off so much from his mom and dad? Do you think that it's because of, like, spoiler alert, because of what, his mom was the one who was driving the car that where that got into the accident where he lost his, the loves of his life. So do you think it's because he's afraid of having that moment of being angry with his mom, because obviously, like, we know, like, he is able to express how he feels later on, but like I feel like it's an avoidant kind of thing for him. Like he leaves that, he leaves home, and he's basically like, I need to stay away from everybody on, in my family, because I don't know how I'm going to react. I don't know how I live my life with, this level of anger that I have, that I can't really express, because this is someone who I love too, that was responsible for me losing these other people that I love.
Hmm. I think it's a multi-tiered thing. I think on one hand, yeah, primarily I think it's where you're saying, he loves his parents very much. He loves his mom very much. And I think it's just impossible for him to bring himself to see them because of the anger that he knows he harbors toward his mom. At the same time, so much of life is like it's projection, right? Like, the things that we're most upset about in other people oftentimes are things that we don't like about ourselves. And I think if he were to go see his parents and he were to face his mom, not only would he have to face the pain and the grief of knowing that she was at least partially responsible and then having to deal with that, but then he would also have to deal with his own anger at himself for not being there in the first place. And that's, when that happens, when we lose loved ones, we will concoct all kinds of reasons to be upset at ourselves. Like I remember my grandfather was like the most important person on the planet to me at a particular time of my life, most of my life actually. And when he passed in 2010, and he had been sick for several years before that and in a lot of pain. And I can't tell you how much I beat myself up because I told myself I should have been there. I should have left LA. I should have forgone my work and I should have gone back home to the Midwest to be with my grandfather. And that wasn't realistic. He didn't want me to do that. He wouldn't have wanted me to do that. But I put that on myself. And so I think that's the added layers, that not only does he have to face the anger and the resentment and the rage that he probably feels toward his mom, but then he has to deal with his own feelings of guilt.
Mm.
It's a double whammy.
Yeah, it really is. And then my next question is, there are so many twists throughout this story. So, obviously, like the Tristan, and his mom's connection, and then Elizabeth and Steven's connection with Jamie and Tanner. It's like, did you guys read the script and go, whoa, or had you read Brittany's book beforehand?
I hadn't read Brittany's book beforehand, so when I read the script, I mean, it's a beautiful script. I was like, I gotta read the book now. I have to read the book because I gotta, I mean, you don't get to, this is the first time I've read a script that came from a book. So that's so cool because there's so much in the book and it helps, it helps to have that for the script. And there's so much that isn't always in the script that you get from the, both characters' perspectives from the book. So right after I got the script, I read her book instantly, and it took me like 2-3 days to get through the whole thing because you can't stop reading, and it's so emotional, it's so funny, and I just had such a good time reading it, and I love all the characters, especially Liz and Tristan, and yeah, it was a great book.
What about you, Ryan?
I had not read the book prior to reading the script, and I was reading the script, and all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa, wow! I did not see that coming. I did not see that twist coming." And then it just sort of took on this whole new tone, which was cool because I love a small town drama. I love a good small town dramatic thriller, and so having those elements come into place was really cool. And then I'm a very slow reader, so I didn't actually read the book. I listened to the book. So as soon as I got the job, and decided to do it, then or got the offer and decided to do it, then I went and started listening to the book and made my way through it a few times.
Did it help having Brittainy on set? Like, did you guys find yourself going to her for guidance on anything if you had any questions?
So much. It helps. It helped a great deal. I'll Kelcie, if you want to answer, I'll wait. But that's my short answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me. Brittainy is one of the loveliest people I've ever met. She's so sweet. I mean, if you meet her, she's just, everybody loves her. She's so easy to talk to. So it was one of those situations where if anything did come up, she was so welcoming to everything you wanted to say to her, any questions you wanted to ask. And she really let us kind of do our thing. If there was something we wanted to say, hey, what do you think about this? She was so excited to see what we had and you know, collaborate on it. And yeah, we all, I mean, we both were constantly chatting with her, and she just made it super easy. And also something else I really love about her book is you get perspectives from both the characters, which I haven't read a lot. I mean, it was just so cool to see this is how Liz is seeing everything, and you know, going on a few chapters. And then all of a sudden it shocked me when all of a sudden Tristan's perspective, because I didn't expect that. I expected it, oh, it's going to be Liz the entire time. But having his perspective too on the exact same situation that just happened was so cool and so helpful to see how they're both dealing with this, and everything's going on in their minds. So, you know, they're keeping all these things to themselves. And so when they're coming together, it just makes it really cool to see, oh, this is what they were thinking.
Yeah, I'll say that, to echo what Kelcie said, Brittainy is just a gem of a human. She's absolutely lovely and was so supportive the entire time on set and reassuring. I mean, it's this is the first time that I had ever gotten the opportunity to portray a character that already existed, and I felt a lot of pressure because of that. I was very nervous about it. On one hand, it's great because you have a template. It's like, okay, well, I don't have that. There's less responsibility to sort of pull it out of thin air because it's there. But at the same time, I felt the pressure of wanting to really honor the character and honor the story and honor the fans' expectations. And Brittainy was so helpful with all of that. You know, she would. It was just great. You know, she wrote it, and so when she would come up to us after a scene and say, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing," or you know, whatever, it's like, "Oh, thank God, that's good." That feels like a relief to know that we're actually satisfying the person whose opinion matters the most, because she created these characters. So it was really, really helpful in that regard as well.
Yeah. And then I'm going to ask a fun question. What was it like working with Zeus, and was Zeus well behaved? Because I know sometimes they say that animals can be the most difficult scene partners. And then another question for you, Ryan, is what was it like having all those tattoos on? And what was the process? Like, how long did it take getting them put on? Like, when I saw them, it was you know, like out of the book, but I was like, that must have taken hours to do.
Yeah, it actually. I'll start with the tattoos first. The tattoos weren't that bad. They weren't. They were not as labor intensive as I thought they would be. It was our makeup artist Aaron was really, really great, super talented, and I'd say by like after the first week, we had a system pretty well dialed in. And sometimes that system involved me having to go, you know, on the weekend, like strip them completely off in my hotel room with rubbing alcohol and whatever else. But yeah, it actually wasn't that bad. I think when we had to start from scratch, by week 2, the longest that it ever took to put them all on was, I think, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Because they also, as the weather changed a little bit while we were there shooting, then that affected how the tattoos stuck and all that. So it wasn't terrible. It actually it was less challenging than I anticipated. And as far as Zeus goes, man, Zeus is going to steal everybody. Zeus and Charlotte are going to steal everyone's hearts. They are the stars of this movie. he's Zeus is amazing. I was just looking back at pictures of him the other day. I grew up with golden retrievers. They're my favorite dogs by far. And so getting to have a golden retriever son on set was definitely a dream come true for me. He was very well behaved. One thing I learned is that apparently I didn't know this because the only animal that I had ever worked with before, I think, was a pig. That pig was a pain. That pig got paid more than any actor on set and did not do his job well at all. Zeus, however, was a good boy. But I learned that animals, dogs, cats too, I guess, have specialties. Like some dogs are barking dogs. Some dogs are carrying dogs. Other dogs are trick dogs. I thought they all did it all, but no. So Zeus, we found out, I don't know if I should, is Allie on here? Is Allie? Mm-hmm. Allie, can I say this? I don't know if I can say it or not.
Yes, you can. Sorry.
Okay.
Still have no voice, but yes, you can.
Okay, thanks. So Zeus, I found out, was not a carrying dog. So when it came time for the scene, this is a little fun behind the scenes trivia for the fans. So you'll see the scene where Zeus is being transported from Kelcie's, from Lizzie's car. And that was a really difficult scene to shoot because Zeus did not want to be carried. And I also found out that big, like large dogs like that, usually, like when they're taken to the vet, usually have two people carrying them. And I didn't know that. But it makes sense because like nobody ever picks up large dogs, rarely, sometimes. So Zeus was not a carrying dog, but he did everything else very, very well. And he was a pleasure to work with.
Okay. It sounds like a fun set. Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, well, my last question for you guys is Tristan and Elizabeth both, when they get into their relationship with each other, they say that they're using each other so that they can keep the memory of Jamie and Steven alive. But in like to me, it felt like they weren't really doing that. It felt kind of like they were saying that as a way to cover up that they really actually did want to be with each other, but they felt like it was a way to keep them from feeling bad, like they were moving on and just like they were forgetting about their husband and their wife. So how did you guys interpret that? Like, did you guys see it as that's what they were doing, that they were using each other for that specific purpose, or did you feel like they're just doing this as a cover because they truly actually want to be with each other, but they're really afraid to actually say, I want to be with you, Elizabeth, I want to be with you, Tristan? Kelcie, you can go first.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. I think going through grief there's no like book to tell you how to get through it. I think they both are just going through a lot, trying to figure out how to navigate this new relationship, what it means. And, along the way, they're discovering things about themselves. And I think that's really scary. And there's these new things that they're not used to. And Liz has a daughter and she has to think a lot about that. And so I think, yeah, I think it was hard because they come together and they just have this really intense relationship just from the start. They're like this, they're like, magnets. And I think that's really scary to go through while you're still dealing with grief, to meet somebody that can make you feel that way. And I think they're both just trying to figure that out and to say that out loud. You have all these feelings, you have all these things going on inside of you, but when you say it out loud, it's real. And I think that was what was so scary for both of them, is to say it out loud means, what I'm thinking, I know what you're thinking, and oh my gosh, this is what we're going through. So I think that is the journey that they go on, is trying to say, this is how I truly feel. I'm going to be able to be vulnerable. And not only do you know it, but I know it too.
Yeah. And what about you, Ryan?
Well, yeah, it's a complicated thing because obviously there is an attraction and there's a connection that develops between them pretty quickly, and in spite of Tristan's resistance. And at the same time, they obviously also miss greatly their spouses. And it's like, it feels wrong. And I think it's natural for it to feel wrong in that kind of circumstance, because I think when we go through loss, or even sometimes the end of a relationship that we wanted to work but didn't, there can be a sense of guilt in moving on. So it's like, maybe it ended not because of anything terrible, but it just wasn't working. But you really love that person. And I've heard people say that before about they felt guilty being happy. And that's especially true with a circumstance like this where loss is involved. So it's a complicated, messy situation that they're in, where they know they have genuine feelings for one another, but I think they're not ready to admit that. Like, kind of like what Kelcie was saying, they're not ready to admit that yet. They're not ready to stamp that, because it feels wrong and it's really scary. And I do think that I love that Brittainy wrote what she did, because I do think that there can be some truth and some legitimacy to being not, I don't like to use the word using, but like having something like that it can provide healing in a way. I think sometimes, it can provide it's a salve that because there's love there, there's connection there, but they just weren't ready to admit that.
Yeah.
Until they just couldn't deny it anymore.
Thank you. Yeah, those are good answers. And thank you both, Ryan and Kelcie, for your time, and congratulations on the premiere for The Air He Breathes. And I look forward to hopefully getting a chance to see you guys tonight if things are not too busy. So it was so lovely to talk to both of you. And I think you guys both nailed the characters. So I'm looking forward to everybody seeing the film too.
Thank you. Thank you
you.
so much. Yeah, come say hi tonight. You see
Okay.
us.
Yeah, we're
Have a
really
good one.
excited to see what everybody thinks, and just how I think it's gonna go great. And I'm
Me
I'm
too.
really excited to see everybody.
Me too. Have a good one. Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Yeah.